Buffie Purselle is worried about intergenerational poverty, and she wants to help you learn to crawl so you can ball. Crawl so you can ball. We're going to talk about how we do that. She is a serial entrepreneur, helps people start businesses. She started a ton of different businesses. We're going to talk about those as well and some of the keys to success. And the woman helping end generational poverty. Great day to talk about this, Juneteenth. Buffie Purselle is here. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Well, I'm great now that you're here hanging out with us. So I want to start here. I know one Buffy. She's a total badass. She's amazing. How did you? Well, of course, duh. How did you end up with the name Buffy?
So my mother loved this show, and I'm about to date myself, even though my skin doesn't look that I'm the age that I am. She loved this show in the 70s called A Family Affair. And there was a cute little girl with pigtails named Buffy. And so when she had me, she named me Buffy.
Well, and reading your book, by the way, because you have very little personality, as people are going to find out. You don't have any personality at all, Buffy. I thought it was like the badass Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was sure that's what it was.
Yeah, and when I had my chain of tax practices, I tried to call it Buffy the Tax Slayer. And then I got a cease and desist from 20th Century Fox.
Did you really?
Yes.
Did you really?
I did.
Isn't that dumb? Because don't you think that kind of helps them?
True.
You know what I mean?
But they proved confusion of the mark, so it's fine.
That is wild. So to tell people a little bit about you that don't know you, the three people that don't know you, you have been on not one but two reality TV shows.
Yes, I have.
How do you even get into that? Like, did you apply? What happened? Did people come after you?
So for the Bravo show, yes, people came after me for several Bravo shows for a number of years, obviously, because I'm a little bit of a socialite in Atlanta and known in those circles. But for the CNBC show with Marcus Lemonis, I applied. I thought it was an awesome opportunity to be his, apprentice. And I had a lot of fun until I didn't.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because we tried once to have Marcus on the show, and we didn't even get to Marcus, which is weird because we've interviewed a lot of people of Marcus's stature. But I was told by some people around Marcus that dude's kind of a diva. Like, you think you may be a diva, but he is a diva.
Honey, and I don't care if Marcus hears this because he knows he is more of a diva than I am. Wears more cologne than I do perfume. His outfits are better than mine. Back then I was still wearing labels. Ooh, that was before I was found. I was lost back then, before I didn't wear my assets on my ASS. But he's a diva, and we got into some fights. And so I essentially quit the show in a way that I knew everyone would know that I knew what I was doing when I quit. I said that I didn't know how to read a balance sheet. Now, everybody knows that I know how to read a balance sheet.
You probably know how to read a balance sheet.
And Marcus was like, he whispered to me, Buffy, you know how to do this. And I was like, yeah, I'm out. And I was mad because we had worked like a 16-hour day, and he made me pick up dog poop. And he was, and like, I was just like, dude, I don't want this job this much.
But he's very successful. How do you think he got to that level of success if he's that much of a diva?
He's smart. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, and he does connect with the people that he needs to connect with. He's very strategic. And in business, you have to be. I'm not going to hate on him for that, So.
Well, and I want to talk about strategic because you were strategic from a young age. You made an offshoot of your family's tax practice starting at what age? How young were you?
I was 19. Yeah.
19.
I was a little spoiled rich girl, and I had worked in my family's chain of tax. My family had 10 branches when I was 16 in the state of Georgia. And I was like, y'all are boring. This is very H&R Blockish. I don't want to do this. And so when I started college, I was like, I don't care if y'all cut me off. I found a little hole in the wall office that was $900 a month that I could afford. And that's a dangerous word, afford. And
I want to get back to that. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, and I started Buffy the Tax Heiress, and I grew that practice into 5,000 clients within 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you were doing something right then. And then you decided to become also a mortgage broker.
Yeah, I found that my clients were, I was like, what are you doing with these tax refunds? What are you doing making all this money? You're not saving. What are you doing? Where are your investments? And I was like, they're not buying houses, and it was an intimidating process for them. So I went and became a licensed mortgage broker, and I started originating loans for my clients.
And all of a sudden, and that's taken off too.
Yeah.
So now
yeah,
you
they
have
did really well.
two businesses doing really well. And then, and this is a heck of a story, then it kind of comes crashing down.
2008, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was smart. I sold the mortgage brokerage before I could see the end was nigh. I had clients coming in telling me, well, you said I can only afford a $300,000 house, but if we do this ninja product, and I was like, yep, it's time for me to get out. It's time. I was like, I'm not.
A ninja product, like a stealth loan?
Right. No income, no asset. And I'm like, you're not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I got you. Yeah.
I'm like, you're not a self-employed person. You work a W-2 job at Coca-Cola. You don't qualify for that product. Well, my friend, I'm like, okay, go to your friend's place and don't come back as my tax client either, because I'm not going to want to hear it later when you're in a mess upside down in this loan. And so I sold the brokerage. It was smart before the end came, and it was rough. It was a rough time.
But at the same time, Buffy, on your lifestyle, you write that your lifestyle wise, I mean, talk about crawl before you ball. You were balling. I mean, you were going to England to get extensions.
Yeah, when I was 19 and 20 years old. Yeah, I built my first house when I was 19. I started investing in real estate, and then I was working all the time, and I was in college, and I would see all my friends. They were always like jet setting, and they always had on cute outfits, and I was looking a hot mess. And I was like, well, why am I working so hard? And so I started listening to that little devil on my shoulder, and I was like, I deserve these things. So I started flying to London once a month to get my hair done, where Beyonce was getting her weave done, and I bought more shoes than Imelda Marcos owned. I just stopped doing what I normally did, which was to save the lion's share of my income and invest it, and I start spending it. And then, baby, I looked in those bank accounts, and the markets changed, and the clients backed off, and I was like, oh, crap. And I had to roll back. I had to have a come to Jesus moment with myself.
Do you remember where you were then? Because for a lot of people, like for me, I remember where I was. I ran out of gas and I just had no money. I was done. Do you remember where you were when you're like, you know what, this has to change now?
Yeah, I had gone to my office, and there was a notice on the door from my landlord saying I was 2 months behind in rent. Yeah. I was just bawling and like forgot, and I was like, crap. And I was doing too much, and it was embarrassing, and clients had seen it, and my neighbors in the office complex, and I was just like, yeah, you're doing too much. That was my rock bottom. Yeah.
Let's start fixing this, because not only did you fix your own situation, now you've fixed tons of other people's situations and some of the inspirational things that you've helped people with. But first of all, there's this idea of a budget, right? And I know for you, you're not a big fan of that word, about the word budget.
No, because it scares people. People think that a budget is a four-letter word. They think it's a curse word, and it's a bit intimidating. And I don't think that your financial journey or financial fitness starts with a budget. It starts with, why do I do these crazy things that I do? And so I think a lot of people who read all these books, who go to all these seminars, end up ultimately failing at changing their relationship with money, because they don't first deal with, why am I doing this? What are the financial anxiety triggers that cause me to overspend? Because we all know that 1 + 1 = 2, honey. And if something costs $3, we ain't got enough money for it. Everybody knows that now.
Yeah, but what's funny is, you talk about getting into your brain and getting into your mental. Why do we never? I feel like we never talk about mental health and money. We really don't put the two together enough at all.
And they're intertwined. There's no way to switch it around. I have this digital course, and I have this student who mentioned that her mother had money sickness. And that, on the 1st and the 15th of every month, she took to the bed, and that she and her sister had to take care of their mother. And that is a story for so many people. And now as an adult, she's an HR manager making great money, doesn't have any financial problems, but she takes to the bed every 1st and 15th. And I feel like that's financial PTSD. That gets into our mental health, and we feel that that's normal. It's what happened when we were kids, and so then once we're forced into the world, regardless of what our situation is, we still suffer. And the people who watch their parents rob Peter to pay Paul, when they become adults, the schools don't teach you anything. If your parents didn't know what to do about money, once you're thrown out there, you don't know what to do. And so when you're struggling, you think, oh, this is normal. That's what life is. No, I'm here to tell you, life is not about struggle. It's about fulfillment and happiness. And we've got to change the taboo nature of discussing finances, period, and your mental health.
Is that where it starts? Does it start with talking the stuff out loud about walking through some of the stuff we did when we were growing up, or some of the things that our parents did? Like, where do we begin that process?
The first step in my book and in my digital course is what I call what had happened was. And so I force people to say, hi, my name is Buffy. And what had happened was, it's akin to the Alcoholics Anonymous. Hi, I'm Buffy and I'm an alcoholic. I'm not, but you know what I mean. And so when you're forced to go back and say, so I was making all this money and I saw all my friends looking cute. And so I started flying to England and getting my hair because I thought I was Beyonce. And then all of a sudden I couldn't pay my rent at my office. And so once you say it out loud and you acknowledge it, then something clicks, it changes. Because so many of us are so scared of people finding out that we don't have a good relationship with money. We're walking around with this avatar, where I'm a baller, I'm Jay-Z and Beyonce, I'm this, I'm that, when really if you go home, it's a financial mess. And it's just too much stress on your system, and you confuse your brain. It's like, who are you, the avatar or the person that's really stressing? It's too much work, and we got to cut out the cray-cray. Stop trying to keep up with the Instagram Joneses. They're broke. Trust me, I was in practice for 20 years, and they were my clients. They ain't got no money either.
That was the next thing I wanted to talk about, because, you talk about that avatar. So many people are walking around with this avatar that's not them at all. You talk about this boyfriend, you call him Sam in the book, who was a millionaire, a bajillionaire in his head. Everybody thought that he had tons of money. And it sounds like you were funding his lifestyle. Like you were funding everybody's lifestyle.
Yeah, I was a human ATM machine. I had what I call money guilt. I had wealth guilt. And because I come from this really loving family, everybody's so huggy and everybody loves each other, it's so sweet, and I sometimes feel guilty because of that. And so when I meet other folks, I used to feel like I had to pay for their love. And I think a lot of people, if they really think about it, they can relate to that. Because
that kind of feels too, Buffy, not to cut you off, but there's some almost feeling guilty, like you've got money and people around you don't. So there's this little bit of guilt going on as well.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, I got a 7 Series BMW for my 16th birthday. I have guilt. It's my experience was not the same as everyone else. I spent my childhood in Germany. And so there's some guilt, especially I'm a Black woman, and a lot of people who look like me and that are in my orbit didn't have that childhood. And yes, I left my family fold to start my own businesses, but the reality is I could do that because I had the privilege of knowing that if I really failed, I had somebody that could bail me out, and everybody doesn't have that. And so, I would see I saw the Sam jerk, significantly older than me. I bought him a car, convertible child. Saw that mug driving around in my car with another woman. And,
Are you kidding me? Really?
No. And I was crazy. I stopped him in the intersection, left my car, kicked him out, and drove off. And I didn't realize the woman was in the car until a minute later. She was so scared. I left her at the bus stop where she belonged.
Yes, she did. But it's not just you, and it's not just Sam. You talk about how so many people are walking around with this avatar that really isn't true, and we got to get over that. We got to get over that. In fact, you were at a gas station, and so people recognized you from reality TV, and they saw Bessie.
My baby Bessie.
Can you tell people who Bessie is?
Bessie was my beloved car. She was 15 years old. She had, and yes, she was a Benz, but she was an older Benz. and she was paid for, and she had raggedy seats, and the air conditioning vents, only one worked. It was the one near me, and the radio worked, and so that was fine. She cranked up every day. And I was, putting some fuel in Little Bessie. I love that car. And this girl was like, "You're Buffy from Bravo? This is your car?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What's the problem?" And she was just like, "I thought you were wealthy." And I was like, "Darling, there's not enough time for me to go into how wrong what you're saying is." So I just said, "Thanks." I was like, "Hope you have a good day." And I drove home to my $3 million mansion.
But I love that because, you take the car, which I remember when I was working at the TV station in Detroit, and one of the anchors had two leases, two lease vehicles, and between the two of them, it was about $2,500 a month going out the back. And what's bad was, and I felt horrible for her, she was surrounded by all these people taking advantage of her because she had so much cash flow. And she felt like because she was an anchor on the news, she had to look a certain way, And yet you cut your cost incredibly by having Bessie.
Right. Having Bessie enabled me to buy multiple rental properties that still made me money to this day, So we've got to change this narrative that we've got to fake it until we make it. It's very toxic. And then when we make it, you think then, well, I've got to maintain, or I've got to set the standard for everyone else. And no, you don't. You know what I mean? Just because you make a lot of money, it doesn't mean that you have to fall prey to these trappings of driving six-figure vehicles and wearing your assets on your ASS and labels and doing all this stuff. It's a trap. It's really a trap. And really, truly wealthy people, as you and I know, they drive late model cars. They invest in real estate. They're not wearing labels. And, people are falling for this millionaire marketing when real millionaires don't live like that.
Well, and it's funny because you walk through some of the chemical reactions that we have, right? This dopamine hit that we get, that the people that want to live this millionaire lifestyle think is really the drug that I'm going for. That you explain is a big part of the trap.
Yeah, I mean, it's like craving sugar or a drug. We especially with the pandemic, when everybody was cooped up and couldn't do anything and sad and scared about the world, and then all of a sudden the world's open again, and we want to, or even during the pandemic, we want to crave these highs, these happy feelings, and dopamine and serotonin provide that to us, but temporary. And so, like, you can go on Amazon and shop, and you feel, oh, I'm going to get this cute thing, and when the box arrives, you get to unbox it, and it makes you feel great. But then when that credit card bill hits,
yeah. Oops.
Whoops. It's all gone. And so, there are other ways that we can get those same feelings, like taking a walk or having social connectedness with family. There are plenty of other things you can do other than spending coins. And we definitely need not to be spending any money right now with this recession, honey.
Yeah, no, it's a great time to be saving money, right? I mean, great time. If you have a job and you're able to, it's a great time to try to save some money.
I love how you say that, if you're able. That's so very encompassing. I love that.
Well, because there are some people, I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, where I just couldn't, you're like, okay, talk to me about saving lots of money. Let me find a job first.
Right.
Like let's crawl first.
Crawl,
Buffy.
baby.
Let's crawl. Right. Hey, I wanted to ask you though, your husband being a psychiatrist.
I'm glad you got that right.
And you really, I got it wrong earlier for people that are wondering where that comment came from. And Buffy was very quick to correct me, and rightfully so. He's a psychiatrist. You work extensively with money and feelings. And I'm wondering about, the time of COVID that you just brought up, and really what that kind of did to us. Because, we went from, a lot of us, from some structured lifestyles to everything's just a giant malaise. And so maybe I felt like I needed that Amazon hit more, and because one thing that scares me right now is we're seeing these numbers coming out that people are now applying for tons and tons and tons of credit again, right? Mm-hmm. So now that we can move around, I feel like COVID, I don't know, discussions at your dinner table with you and your husband. Talk to me about COVID and money and really, what happened there?
A lot more people than they realize are depressed. They're suffering from depression and COVID fatigue, and the world is uncertain right now. And, mental health is just something that is so taboo in this country. I have no idea why. The brain controls everything in our body, honey. So it should be the most important thing, right? If you're in a mental health crisis, it should be akin to if you're having a heart attack, but it's not looked on that way. And so a lot of people are suffering in silence. And you can't get out of bed, you're sad, you're still feeling, like you're cooped up from COVID. And so again, you're looking for these ways to make yourself temporarily happy. You're going on holiday when you shouldn't be. You're, buying a new car when you work remotely and don't need a new car. You make these irrational decisions because you're in a place of pain and you're not dealing with it. And a lot of people are hurting right now. Like my husband has a 7-month wait list to get in. It's crazy.
I believe it. I totally believe it.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
And like the kids, I feel really sorry for the kids because if you think like I have a nephew who's 19 now and like he was in high school, you know what I mean? And then graduated and missed out on prom and all this stuff because of COVID. And we still don't know what that's done to these kids. You know what I mean? There are no studies yet. We don't know the effects that that's going to have on them later. And, we really need to focus more on mental health for everybody and finances.
I feel like we're not going to know for 10 years.
We're not. Mm-mm.
It's going to be 10 years from now. We're going to get all these weird side effects and people wondering what happened.
Yep.
Yeah, tough stuff. If there is one overwhelming message that you have for people right now when it comes to their money, the place where money meets their health, what would that be?
Quit trying to buy happy. Like, find... I think we need to go back to the basics of let's spend time together at home. What's wrong with a potluck instead of giving all our money to these restaurants? Let's, spend time with family. And family doesn't mean people you're related to. It could be your friends also. I think we just got to quit spending $1 to buy happy and, think more inward on what really makes you happy and not what society or society, as I call society, says should make you happy.
The book is called Crawl Before You Ball. I wish we could talk for another 45 minutes. But that's not it. You also said you coach people. You have a course. How do people get a hold of you?
So my website is justbeingbuffy.com, and I'm very popular on TikTok at Just Being Buffy. I cut up, I show out, I give little tidbits of financial literacy information with a little snark and sarcasm, so it's not just feeding you vegetables all the time. And you can also...
I feel like you're just entertaining yourself and bringing us with you. You're totally entertaining you. You've got an audience of one.
Right. Me. I retired at 41 and I got bored. And so I was like, let me try this social media thing. And it's been fun. So yeah, that's how you can find me. And I have a digital course. It's fun. And I actually do once a week Zooms with my students. And we get into some fun stuff. And sometimes Dr. Purselle comes on and does mindfulness and breathing.
All right.
And all that. Yeah.
We get the 1-2 punch, both the Purcelles. All right. And by the way, we'll link to all of that on our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. And as usual, we'll have deep dives on everything Buffy and I talked about in our newsletter, The 201. Buffy, great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Get my book on Amazon, y'all. Smooches.